Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of November 2025. I hope you are well. I have not been, and that's why these readings are late. Apologies for that, but gratitude, massive gratitude for your patience. It is appreciated. So we're using the Llewellyn Tarot today. Here it is. Things to tell you before we begin. If the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via the first link in the description box below. Alternatively, you can come over to my private community on Circle, which is the Order of the Phoenix. There you can get extended access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, which is all of the extended content for each of the signs every month, plus a weekly energy reading that I do for people over there. And if you join at the higher tier, then you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there at least a couple of times a month. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Right, let's flip you around here in the nicest possible way and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Gemini, please? There's the first one. We've got the Nine of Wands. Current energy for Gemini, please. We have the 8 of Pentacles, also kind of appearing a little bit on the wonk. What's coming towards Gemini for the rest of November, please? Thank you. 3 of Wands. Now, we've got the Knight of Swords at the bottom of the deck, which is lovely because that's your energy right there, Gemini. And although these cards have kind of come out slightly wonky, it feels like the main thrust of your energy is actually working towards something that is seeing some movement in you that maybe you haven't had in a little while, right? There's a dynamism here between the 8 of Pentacles, between the 3 of Wands and the Knight of Swords at the bottom of the deck. You know, whenever we have a card come up that quite literally signifies the sign that we're reading for, there's always questions of identity kind of tapping in there as well. So it could be that, you know, you've been feeling a little bit lost in the soup of everything, but somewhere around about now, maybe, you're starting to kind of lock in on something that feels solid. I think that's the word that I'm looking for. I was going to say meaningful, but I think solid is the word, because there's so much in the way of shifting sands, and I think Gemini doesn't really need too much of a solid base. You are accustomed to, you know, you're an air sign and you're a mutable air sign, no less. So that kind of movement, very, very light, is part of your archetype. But at the same time, it feels like it needs to anchor into something, and it's been difficult for you to anchor yourself into something rather than, you know, putting concrete boots around your feet, which is possibly how it might feel if you try to do life like an earth sign, right? So tell me about this 9 of Wands, please. Page of Pentacles, that makes sense. I like that. Wheel of Fortune, very interesting. Okay, tell me about the 8 of Pentacles, please. Right, we've got 3 cards here. What do we have? We have the Page of Wands, we have the Devil, and we have the Knight of Pentacles. I actually really like that. Okay, tell me about the 3 of Wands, please, for Gemini. We've got the 5 of Cups on its side, and we've got the King of Cups kind of in the reverse with the 6 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Now, this is really interesting because to some extent, and this might sound a little bit weird, Gemini, but like, bear with me for a second. It feels almost like this feeling that I had about you spinning a little bit has been as a direct result of being just a little bit too open. Now, it's not usual, you know, it's not a usual position to take, to go, oh my goodness, you're too open. But I do feel like there's something that's needed to be grounded with you. And the consequence of being so open is that there's a questioning of all the things that were, now, how do we phrase this? Yeah, it comes back to what I was saying before about the solid foundation within you. Let me get my bit of selenite here, right? Because the 9 of Wands here, this card, right? For me, the 9s represent how we manage whatever suit they're talking about right here. So in the case of the Nine of Wands, we've got experience, we've got activity, we've got the why of why you do things and the actual result of what it is that you do, right? But we're also talking about things like boundaries, where the Nine of Wands is concerned. And the presence of the Nine of Wands here feels like a need to assert some boundaries over a situation. Now, this could be with other people, but I feel like the boundaries are actually kind of spiritual a little bit here. It's like, because you've been so wide open and because you've been spinning without anything to kind of bounce off, it's like all that energy's been just open and out there. Now, the problem with that is that this page of Pentacles is like, well, what do I stand for? What it feels like a search for meaning more than anything else. And the problem is because there are so many structures in freefall right now. It's difficult to orient yourself in the middle of it all. Now, I don't feel like you've had a tower to respond to or anything like that, but I do feel like you've just been wide open. And it's possibly because everything's in freefall and everything is collapsing, right? Slowly, for sure, but it's happening. And I think it will start to gain momentum next year. Like, we will really see that next year. But if the way that you work out where you are is by reference to things that are around you, beneath you, above you, whatever, and then they start to shift themselves, it feels like it's a little bit disorienting. Let's pull out another deck here. Let's get this World Unknown. But the beautiful thing about the Wheel of Fortune being there is that this has been actually quite an important lesson for you, because it has had you questioning the previous foundation on which you based yourself. Whatever that means to you. Yeah, look at this, 10 of Pentacles. Now, the one thing that we can say about the 10 of Pentacles is it's very much associated with the end of a cycle. It's a card that people like to kind of hold on to once they've achieved it, because it's like, well, I worked really hard for this. I've created structure and stability and all these kinds of things, right? But now we're at a point where we're kind of questioning what has been the solid structure. Now, this could relate to business. It could relate to quite literally where you live. But it's that more energetic presentation of what is it do I rely on that I think gives me security and stability. And now I can see it kind of shaking and wobbling around. I have been kind of broken free and set loose from this. And now I'm in this state of kind of wondering what the fuck it is that I value. Like, what the very nature of structure and stability looks like for me. And these two tens here are like, this marks a turning point for you, Gemini. The boundaries have been important because I think the boundaries have required you to kind of go within and go, well, what actually is going on in here? Like, what's changing? What's shifting? Is it the external things that I've kind of let me find a way to put, I can see it, but then trying to find the words to communicate what I can see is, or feel rather, is different. So Gemini moves around a lot, right? Obviously, we understand that. But there will come a point where you come into contact with something and that will bounce you back the other way, right? Now, I feel like the usual things that you would bounce back against, you've just kind of kept going. And it's like, oh, well, I'm sure there should be a rebound here somewhere. Like, as I bounce off something solid and come back, I have a sense of, how big I am, how much energy I've got, all that kind of thing. But it's by way of reference to these external things. Now, I don't think that those external things have been providing that same, here is the edges of your existence for you. And with that has come well, where is the value? What is the value? What is the structure? What is the stability? Where are the edges that I can bounce off to come back on myself and then go back the other way, right? We kind of work out where we are almost by like echolocation, but on an energetic frequency, right? And if there's nothing to bounce off, then you're not getting the signals back. And that feels spacey. Let's put it that way, right? So the reason why I feel like it's really important is because of this Wheel of Fortune here, which is, as we know, always turning. And in that is the implication that the shift that you've been feeling is correct, right? It's almost like a confirmation of your intuition. But it's saying, like, in the absence of the things to bounce back against. And this is all an internalized state. I want to make this clear. Even if it's external structures that you've, ordinarily bounced off, it is an internalized state of what do I value enough? What grounds me? What shows me where the edges of everything are? Because they're not there, not in the same way that they have been. And so there's, yeah, when I said it felt a little bit like a search for meaning. It's almost like you've reached the edges of the meaningfulness of what you used to bounce off, and now you're kind of spinning out there and you're like, well, this is no good, right? This is not fit for purpose anymore, because I can't tell where the edges of me are anymore. The Wheel of Fortune is part of this process. It's been the energy that's been pushing on you that has led you to where you are right now, right? So if this is the end of a cycle, and we recognize that the old ways of assessing our own energy, the old ways of assessing what was valuable to us, as well as the old ways of assessing what security and stability and all those sorts of things indicate, then it's time for the initiation of something that feels newer and more supportive and more grounded. We're talking about a bit of a consciousness jump in you here, and it's coming by way of reference to your sense of self. So when we come to the Eight of Pentacles, which is a card of discipline and commitment and working hard at something and achieving mastery at it, actually, because we're doing it again and again and again. Although the majority of the cards that are here are earthy, I don't feel like this is quite as dense as it could be, because it feels like a renewed commitment to something, and it's a renewed commitment to something that you yourself are creating, right? You are defining where the edges of things, you are defining where the security and the stability is, and it's not out there, it's in here. That's a huge jump up from the spinning that you've been doing for a little while, right? So the page of Wands right here is about the initiation of some kind of new experience, right? Because we've got so much of the experiential going on with the Wands cards here. And it's saying, well, if what was doesn't work for me anymore, I'm prepared to knuckle down and start creating something that is for me in a way that what was isn't. And you have the skill set to make it happen. The Eight of Pentacles is about mastery ultimately, right? But it's about that continual process of mastery, continuous process of refinement. As I record this, we're in a Mercury retrograde right now. And although I don't think off the top of my head any of these cards literally represent Mercury, there is a sense of reassessment, reevaluation, going back over things, and where we detect there's gaps or there's holes or there's something missing in the grounding that we ourselves need personally, then here is an opportunity presenting itself for us to shore that up, but in a way that feels aligned to us rather than a point of measurement. So it's the weirdest thing, Gemini, because it's almost like you realise you've been rattling around in a box. And there was something quite natural about that. And there was almost something affirming about that as you're bouncing backwards and forwards in the box. So edges there, edges there. I can do whatever I like in the space in between, but there's the edge and there's the edge, and I will just go pinging backwards and forwards in all sorts of different directions. And then as you have transcended the box, and there's nothing to ground yourself to, certainly by the edges of your old reality, there is a conscious and disciplined approach to rooting yourself, rooting some aspect of you, so that you can explore this space a little bit more and decide for yourself where the edges of it should be. One of the really amazing things, and probably really awful things simultaneously, about living in such chaotic times is that all things are possible. It's like potential, which never really, turns on or off. It certainly doesn't go away. It is ever present, but sometimes we can see it. We can detect it more times than others. Is where all this potential exists, and it feels like it's amplified. We can either choose to sit in the chaos of that, or we can sit in the all things are possible now. And I think rather than this being a state of being way too open and floating away, it's like a small amount of boundaries is important for me. But I need a starting place. I need something that feels purposeful and feels meaningful to anchor myself here, so that I can explore from a place of safety what the new parameters of my existence look like. And this is all internal. It might have its expression externally for you, right? New job, a new sense of, kind of purposeful work, whatever. But really, the change is happening on the internal level, because you feel like you've made contact with something that is worth working for. That's why it feels purposeful. That's why it feels meaningful. And even the presence of the devil here doesn't feel like a bad thing, because the entire material world is the domain of the devil, right? And there is no card in the tarot that is all good or all bad. And that extends actually to the devil too. Because sometimes what the devil does is give form to things that are formless, right? Because the material world is his whole dominion. And quite often we see the high priestess coming out with the devil. We've got a kind of higher level conduit of the high priestess bringing some kind of inspiration down, and then the devil gives it form such that it can be perceived by other people. So we've got a preparation here for a state of creation that you are committing yourself to. Now, this could be a change in, like I said, where you live, what job you do, what career you're angling towards, even in terms of things that are a little more abstract, like the way that you're going to show up around people, right? There's a construction phase that seems to be happening here. And I'm not sure if I've seen you ever quite as focused as you are right now, because you are literally creating your own reality. I mean, let's not forget, the devil and and all that kind of thing, whilst generally given to be a negative card, actually represents the sign of the planet Saturn. And I think Saturn gets a really fucking bad rap. I mean, I might have, like, what's it called? Fucking Stockholm Syndrome or something, because I'm a Saturn-ruled sign. And it can feel like Saturn is excessively punitive, and it can feel like he just makes things difficult for the fucking sake of it. But ultimately what Saturn is doing is like that teacher that never gets off your fucking arse at school, right? Because they can see your potential and their job is to make you reach it, even if you don't fucking want to, right? They're going to be there and they're going to be beating with a stick until you achieve what he wants you to achieve, what he knows you can achieve. And at the end of it, there are blessings that come with that. Now, to that extent, he can also then simultaneously with the Knight of Pentacles represent discipline and hard work and the grind, like the literal grind, again and again and again. This is important. This is meaningful. Therefore, I have to apply myself to it. That's what I'm seeing here. Now, Saturn is currently in Pisces, currently in retrograde, but he's finishing up a story that he started there some time ago, 3 years actually. It's been running through Pisces. And what's really glorious about that is that during his time running through Pisces, what we actually got was Pisces washing away the limitations, right? The old. It's run through the sign of Pisces. He's been purified. He just forgot one thing. That's kind of what the retrograde is. It's kind of like, aha, oh no, hang on, I forgot something. And he's run back into Pisces to say, in order to complete this properly, this is what we need to do. Now, when he moves into, and there's an importance there for you, because everybody has a house that is ruled by Pisces in their chart, right? You'll have to have a look at your chart and see which one it is. And there's been some Saturnian themes that have been running through that house for you, whichever one that is, for the last 3 years. But this, because Pisces is mutable, like you, it's been forming some sort of angle. It's not an opposition, right? So it's a square. It's forcing some kind of movement around any placement that you have in Gemini, at least by house, right? If not by, exact angle and degree and whatnot, 2 planets that you have in Gemini. By house, that whole thing has been under the pressure of Saturn dissolving and now emerging purified and clean, except for the one thing that he forgot, which he's just run back into Pisces to do. Now, he's going to be there until February. And it strikes me as entirely fucking likely that whatever it is that to you has represented the edges of your reality during this time of transition and change is everything's being arranged so that in February, when he moves back into Aries, the point of initiation, right, all the things are in place for you to start doing what you do best, which is being light, right? But you've renegotiated the edges of your reality in doing so, which is absolutely fucking fascinating, right? Because let's be clear, what I'm seeing here is so self-possessed that in the best possible way, the ideas of restriction don't work for you anymore. And if the way that you've worked out who you are is by reference to what other people reflect back to you, I mean, that's been useful to a point, but it's not going to cut it for you any longer. And you see the 6 of Wands here. I mean, that's a card of success. That's a card of struggling and succeeding. The struggle here has been trying to work out who you were without referencing your job title or your skill set or the people that you hang around or your political persuasion or any one of a number of labels that we put onto ourselves. It's like, no. I'm looking for what is purely me, and I'm going to root that in something really important. I mean, the rooting that might be going on here could well be around your identity full stop, Gemini. But I think it's probably got some sort of external expression, So when we come to the rest of November, we've got the 3 of Wands, which is absolutely magnificent because it's got the movement that we want. Like I said, this whole thing seems to be a push towards movement, but it's not movement for movement's sake. It's actually a very deliberate, very managed, I wouldn't say necessarily overtly planned, but certainly under construction kind of movement that is coming from a place that is more you than anything that you've done in a long time. It's coming from a really pure place. We've got that 5 of Cups showing up here, and notice that we've got 2 Scorpio cards here, right? Now, there's a pile-up of planets going on in Scorpio at the moment as I speak. Mercury is, I believe, he is retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, but he will be moving backwards into Scorpio in the next few days. And once he's there, there will be a point where we have the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, and I think Lilith, maybe something else as well, all in the sign of Scorpio, pointing to those things that run really fucking deep with us, right? So where there is a wound, where there is grief, and particularly if that wound or that grief is around a sense of self, or a sense of security, or a sense of stability, or any of those things, right? We're seeing what's happening is there is a distinct shift in the way that the energy is presented. Now, 5s are chaotic, right? That's what the nature of the number is, right? It represents the midpoint in the cycle where what we've built to this point is no good, and now it's all over the place. But the interesting thing is the chaos in this card, is actually represented by the stasis of this card. Emotions are supposed to flow. They are never supposed to stand still. And there's certainly, we're not supposed to be stuck in a state of grief that continues for so long that we don't move ever. Grief is a process, right? We're supposed to move through it. So the stasis indicated by this card right here is the cause of the chaos. It's the cause of the problem. And for the rest of November, what we see is the process of stabilizing that. It could well be that there are some stuck emotions that are coming up to the surface for you, Gemini, that you had no idea were there. And the only way to get them out, the only way to ever access them, is to allow... It sounds so... Allow you to stop defining yourself by what other people think. I think we're touching a really fucking deep wound here with you, Gemini, and I think a lot of it has got to do with the depth of your emotion. Now, you and Sagittarius share an axis, right? And there is quite often Gemini and Sagittarius suffer from the same lazy stereotyping. And that lazy stereotyping is these signs are quite shallow. Now, I want to make sure that you understand that that is not something that I agree with. But I do feel like sometimes that's used as a shield, right? When you felt something really deeply, when that's really, really hurt you, it's like bring everything up to the level of up here and then it doesn't ever hit down there. Right? But with this pile up of planets in Scorpio, shallow won't do, and particularly not if you've been using it as a shield. All right? Maybe we're talking about the little box that you've been in, bouncing from one side to the other on all sorts of different angles, mapping out everything to do with the inside of this box, and suddenly the box is gone. There's no need to use the shallowness as a shield anymore, and Scorpio won't have you do that anyway. It's like it demands depth. Now, I'm talking about that because this King of Cups is showing up in reverse. He's like, and that for me is about cutting off the depth of feeling. It's not moving from a place of authentic emotion. It's kind of like, no, everything's fine, right? Because we're not going down there because that's where there's hurtful stuff. The fact that it's showing up in reverse, I actually think is an indication of what it is that is shifting. And there is a very, very deep, very, very emotional part of you that almost like a bubble in, when you cook really, really thick soup, right? You've made a homemade soup and you're warming it up on the stove. It's really, really thick. You give it a little stir and then you leave it. And it doesn't appear to do anything for a while. And then all of a sudden you get this enormous plop, right, where this big bubble comes up and just pops on the surface. And it's like in thinner liquid, you get tiny little bubbles and they're just coming up non-stop. But when it's in something that's really, really thick, really, really viscous, you've got, it comes up in one big explosive blob. I think that's what the emotional thing is for you this month, right? Something is coming up to the surface and it's getting ready for a complete state of release. Okay, about these cards here. Yeah, 10 of Wands. And the Page of Cups. Here's the thing. The goosebumps. Hermit at the bottom of the deck, right? We're talking about things that are happening at a deep internal level when the Hermit shows up. It's also Virgo energy, right? But you've been carrying around stuff, Gemini, that you didn't even realise was there. Now, the point around about the 19th of November is going to be pretty intense for everyone, right? And that intensity is kind of already building. By the time Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio, there's the intensification, particularly around the area of what we think, right? Because it is Mercury. Oh, Mercury's your ruling planet. Fucking hell, right? We're going really, really deep here. And what comes up may surprise you. But you've been carrying it for an awful long time and you didn't know you were carrying this burden around. And in that big blop moment where you are redefining what reality should mean for you, because it's coming from this authentic place. This big bubble of something shifting is both an expression of you having done this, but also a tool to help you continue to do the same. We're letting go of what has been weighty and rooting ourselves to something that feels much more meaningful. And afterwards, there is a lightness that comes with it. I mean, I don't think you're going to enjoy it when the bubble comes to the surface. It might feel a little bit like a gut punch, but I do feel like you are skilled enough now, Gemini, to identify that for what it is and know how to work with it, know how to release it, and to some extent actually even maybe relish the fact that you have just created some more space, which now your little ping pong ball of energy can map out too. Like, there's a real explorative energy about all of this, but first we're breaking down the limitations, which is absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to go to the extended now. If you'd like to join me over there, you're very, very welcome to do so. You can do that on Self-Light, you can do that on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not for you, then that's fine. Like, ride this month out in the same way that you're doing, because I think whatever it is that comes up for you this month, you're going to know intuitively how to deal with it. You're going to recognize it for what it is, and you're going to feel the relief of that fucking movement too. It's going to make everything feel a lot less well, let's just say the measure of how different you feel afterwards, bearing in mind that you didn't even really know you were carrying this around, is going to be significant, and that feels like a very good thing to me indeed. So know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.